It's December 8th, 2024, and unfortunately there's been some sad things floating around the internet lately about KTM, the mothership. Scary things even about the future. Who knows where it's going to go. So I'm here to talk about absolutely none of that stuff, okay? I have positive, happy, exciting things to talk about because I've been working on some new products for the Superduke. 4 new products. 3 new products for the Superduke, and I'd like to talk about them real quick. Now, there's a new SPORTLINK in town for the electronic control, the EVO 24. There's a new triple clamp for the 1390 and the 1290. I'm making a Superjack, because everything's super, right? A Superjack, a very simple way to jack up the rear of the bike and suspend the suspension. So you can adjust your chain, change your sprockets, change your shock, change your spring. And all of these things we're gonna get into soon because I'm doing a video about springs that's really intense. It's a long time in the works. And when you finally understand springs in this new way, you're gonna change yours. So this will be a good tool. And check this out. Where did it go? Oh, this is the part that fell on the floor. There's a new control arm in town. This control arm lowers the rear of the bike by 20 millimeters because, you know, maybe your legs aren't as long as a giraffe's like the KTM's are. So I like to talk about these 4 new things real quick and update you on all this stuff that's happening. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so 4 new things. Let's start with number 1, the Superclamp. This is the original, this is actually a prototype, but this is the original Superclamp and kind of what it looks like from the side. This is the new Gen 3 and Gen 4 Superclamp. It's kind of a hybrid, right? I designed, this took me a long time of figuring out how to do this, but I actually designed into the new Superclamp. It can accommodate both bikes. It can fit the Gen 3 and the Gen 4. Structurally, there's no real major differences, but of course, the way they bolt the headlight on, the Gen 3 bolts from underneath, the Gen 4 bolts from up here. So even KTM's OEM triple clamp now has both perches on it. I don't know why, they only use one. So now I made the new super clamp with perches on the top and the bottom. And underneath the triple clamp, I made an accommodation so it can fit both bikes. All you have to do is screw in these 2 little inserts. You can order it with the Gen 3 inserts, or the Gen 4 inserts, or both inserts, or you can buy the one insert later. Like if you own a Gen 3 and you bought the super clamp, and maybe you want to move up to a Gen 4, you can take the super clamp with you and just get the different inserts. So that's really exciting. That's brilliant. I was so excited when I thought about that. Amazing. The other thing is, I think some people, I get it, can shy away from getting a super clamp because of the fact that I sell it with tapered roller bearings. And I don't just sell it with tapered roller bearings, but honestly, I didn't really do a great job for the last year of making it obvious of all the things. It's hard to do with a website, and I'm not really a website developer, so I didn't really represent it so great. So I'm trying to do better now. I spent a lot of time. The Gen 1 Superduke came with tapered roller bearings, which I prefer. The Gen 2 came with ball bearings. The Gen 3 and the Gen 4 ball bearings. I don't know whether it's cheaper or whatever the thing is, but I prefer the tapered roller bearings. And I always try to share my experience and things that I learn and benefit from on the racetrack with everybody, okay? So, but that can be a little intimidating, right? Like, oh God, how do I get the races out? It's not that hard, but maybe some people are intimidated. So I made it much more obvious now that you can order the super clamp with just ball bearings. And then you just pull these out, you know, pull your OEM ones out and push these right in. There's no work you have to do with taking out the races for changing from tapered roller bearings to ball bearings. If you want, You can use ball bearings just as easy. So that's a good thing. I made the website much more user-friendly and much more obvious of the choices and the colors and everything. Speaking of which, colors, right now it's December 8th, right? You see this? Black Superclamp Gen 3. There's 3 left. So I've discounted the price. You can still get any ball bearings you want, but if you want a Gen 3 only black Superclamp, now's the time to buy it because there's only 3 left, and I think it's like $900 for the whole thing. Oh, that brings me to another point. There's a lot of points. I am also now selling Superclamp in a different way. You can now buy it like the base Superclamp with only 1 insert if you want. You can get it with the OEM offset, and because of the way I designed it, the OEM offset, which doesn't change, it's exactly what the bike is stock. You'll just have, stiffer, more positive feeling front end and better looking. That's something we'll talk about again in a second. So you have the OEM insert, but because of the way I designed it, the OEM insert, if you pull it out and turn it around and put it back in, it reduces your trail 2 millimeters. It's called a +2. I say plus because that makes the bike perform better, right? Negatives make it perform slower. So let's say that the Superduke comes really negative, like a lot of the offset is so slow or like this. So we want the pluses in the offset to get a little more performance. So just the base, the way I sell the Superclamp now, it's under $1,000. I think it's $975 or something if you get it with the ball bearings and the base setup, which is just the 1 insert. And that's pretty exciting. It took me a long time because it's really expensive to get these. There's like 15 different parts that I have to get machined to build 1 Superclamp. And cha-ching, 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 they add up. It's so expensive. And plus, it's not like I'm making 5,000 of these things, right? So we're an elite group, Superduke riders. So it's very difficult to make these runs, for me anyway. So that's hopefully that helps you understand a little bit better. You can get it in easier, you can get it on easier, you can buy it easier. It's much easier to navigate the website. Lastly, okay, if you look at this is a prototype, it doesn't even have the stainless bolts, but let's just say from the side, this is what a Superclamp looks like. If you look at KTM's Power Part Triple Clamp, you could say it, I know, theirs is better looking. It's a rubber pretzel, but it's a better looking rubber pretzel. So, unfortunately, I never really focused so much on like the aesthetics so much. Just like my race bike. If I painted my race bike to reflect how I feel riding that thing, it would be not all the colors of the rainbow. Don't even go there. But they would be brilliant colors. It would be really snazzy looking because that bike, it's a beautiful bike to ride the way it feels. The way my Superduke, my 1290 Superduke feels with all of the parts that I've put, the Superclamp, the Superlink, all this stuff, the forks, it's beautiful to ride. And it would be beautiful looking. It's not really that beautiful looking. So I've put some work into the looks of the Gen 3/Gen 4 Superclamp. It's not going to look like this on the side. It's going to have a little bit of something on there, which is kind of cool because I've also, for the website, I don't have a logo. I've never had a logo. I have my Bulldog, which I drew like 18 years ago, but that's not really a logo. It's like a little piece of art, fun thing. It's not a logo. I don't have a logo. So I came up with a logo and a design for the side of the Superclamp. They're going to be better looking. All right, so that's the Superclamp. Easier to navigate the website, easier to understand what you're buying, lower price, ball bearings if you want, tapered roll bearings if you want. I'm also going to do an install video of every single step of the way. So a lot of happy things. That's number 1. Number 2, this is really exciting too, and this is a much simpler thing. The Superjack. What the hell is the Superjack? So if you want to adjust your chain in the proper way, you're supposed to jack the bike up and suspend the rear wheel in the air, off the ground, hanging. How the hell do you do that? Hang it from a tree? Hang it from a rafter in your garage? It's really hard to do, actually. So what I do is I machined my version of a Superjack, not as pretty as this, and I slide these things into the frame, right there, like that. Then I just put jack stands underneath. So I put the bike on the rear stand, right? I slide the Superjack into the engine mount there. I put jack stands underneath and I lowered off the rear stand. Boom! Now the rear is suspended in the air. I've done this for years, and I don't know why it just occurred to me now to offer something like this for you, but here I am offering this thing for you too. So if you want to adjust your chain properly, I mean, everyone has jack stands, right? And if you don't, you can get them for like $15 at like Ace Hardware. So that's like a no-brainer. And these will just slide in under the jack. Great. What if you want to change your shock? What if you want to install a SuperLink? What if you want to do any of this stuff with the shock? You need to be able to suspend the rear in a way that the swing arm and the tire and everything is just hanging, not touching the ground. There you go. So again, things I've learned in racing, sharing with everybody. Believe it or not, this little thing, it's not just any old steel. It's like 4130 because it has to be kind of strong, right? It's extending out, and now you have to put a jack stand, so it's got to be kind of strong to hold the bike up. Getting these things machined with 4130, the cheapest price I got was $50 per piece. And I'm selling them for $120? $120? So I'm retarded. I get it. Whatever. I just really want to share the experience. I want to share the things that I've learned and make your experience work well, like mine has. That's number 2. Number 3, what if your legs are not as long as a giraffe, like your KTMs? I've made a solution. This is a different control arm. If you notice, it's not just straight like the OEM control arm, and it's not the same length as the OEM control arm. Why is that? Let me tell you something about links, okay? Because there are people on the internet selling links that lower the ride height. The relationship between these 3 holes is so critical, and not just this dimension and this dimension. They all work together. It's like a spider's web. You know, you just touch a spider's web anywhere on the web, and that spider knows what's happening, right? He's going to come, and you're dead. So similar kind of a thing. You change this dimension right here, 1 millimeter, and you just changed everything about how the rear link works. And the rear link does 3 different things. 3 different things. One affects the height, right? The rear height. One affects the rate, like how quickly the spring is getting compressed. The other one, let's say 1, 2, the other one affects the progression. So as the spring gets compressed, it gets harder and harder and harder if it's really progressive, right? Which the OEM bike is. The SPORTLINKs that I designed are less progressive because when you're in a sport kind of a situation, you don't really want progression like that, because if you hit a bump at 50 miles an hour, the bike will feel a certain way. You hit that bump at 150 miles an hour, it's going to be a completely different experience. With a more progressive spring, you're going to get bounced right out of the chair. So the reason they make progressive is in case your buddy jumps on the back with you, and all of a sudden, you know, the bike gets compressed so far, then you don't want to bottom out. So they make it super, super strong, the spring at the end of the stroke, towards the end of the stroke, just in case you go 2 up. But if you're not going 2 up and you just want to go fast, you're also going to compress the spring a lot because you're going to hit bumps going faster. And now it's not good to have that progression because your buddy's not on the back, just you're there, but you're getting bounced out of the seat, your tire's getting bounced into the air. It's not cool. So SPORTLINKs are specially designed not just to alter the height, but also to alter the progression, right? The thing is, when you change one dimension, they're not independent of each other. They influence each other as well. It's not, you can't just do the height and everything else stays the same. It doesn't work that way. So there are people on the internet that are selling these lowering links, and I got an email, I could share it, but I won't, from a potential customer in LA. He says, yeah, I got this ride lowering link and I almost killed myself on the road. It's the worst handling bike I ever rode in my life. I had to take it out in 2 days and put the original one back in. Good Lord. What was that? So that was someone in the garage cutting a piece of cardboard, drilling holes in it, and just, well, this makes it lower. That is not the way to develop a part. There's no testing, there's no science behind it. That's not the way to do it. SPORTLINKs are wicked complex. There's so much math and science behind the design and testing and racing, all by not just me, but also Gavin. Like, mathematically, they work. The science, the actual testing, they're fantastic. So why am I talking about these links so much if I'm making a lowering kit? Minus 20 millimeters, it's almost an inch, that'll make the bike lower. Why am I talking about this? Because you can't do it with a link. You can't. I've tried it for a long time. All these different combinations and math and all these, it doesn't work. It's a mess. The only way to do it properly is with a different control arm. It's more expensive. Now I gotta press bearings into here and seals and spacers and stuff. They're not hard to install, don't be freaked out, but this is proper. And the reason it has a special shape to it is because just changing the length of the control arm, the shock will hit the control arm. So this is a very special design, and it will lower your bike 20 millimeters. And this has been tested by my friend Ray, who is 5 feet tall and like 98 pounds. And I took her to Laguna Seca with my special control arm, and she rode around the whole day and had a great experience. Not only did she ride around, but I made her push the bike through tech, push the bike through the pits, get it on the stand, get it up. Like, here's a tiny person. Here's a Superduke. See what you can do. I changed the rear spring. I changed the front spring. I changed this lowering link. I changed, suspension settings, obviously, to make the bike a little softer because she's so tiny. And she had a great experience. Thumbs up. So the lowering -20 link will work on the Gen 3 and the Gen 4, and it's for sale on Superduke.com. That's number 3. Number four is the new SPORTLINK. This is it's plus 10, plus 15, and plus 20. Just like we all know, and many of us around the world use, but why did I get rid of that? Now, there's this little accommodation for the electronically controlled suspension for the EVO model, the 1390 EVO. The 1290 EVO doesn't have a sensor. The 1390 EVO does. So I took a lot of time to get it, so the sensor, no matter what link you had, the sensor was in exactly the same place as it would have been with the OEM link. So the bike won't know the difference, but you will. Because, now this is something to keep in mind, especially with the EVOs, and then just the 1290 and the 1390, both. KTM knows that changing the attitude of the bike, right, raising the rear, makes the bike feel sportier, work sportier. Obviously they know this, right, because they sell the bike with the WP Apex Pro shock, which has the ability to get longer, which raises the rear, right? It doesn't raise the rear that much. The SuperLink lets you raise the rear more. Even the plus 20 SPORTLINK raises the rear 2 millimeters more than the WP Apex Pro when it's fully extended. So this is a proven thing that raising the rear improves the handling of the bike. But on the EVO 1290 and 1390, KTM achieves this by increasing spring preload. Now, this is not something that we can talk about simply right here, right now. This is an in-depth video that I have spent probably $800 of my money just to make this video so far. I have machine parts, I have springs laid out, I have a force gauge to explain in a way that even your mom's gonna understand the science behind springs and what happens to your bike when you increase the preload or decrease the preload, right? These things affect your suspension, how your suspension works when you increase or decrease your preload. So KTM is using preload to mechanically change the attitude of your chassis at the cost of compliance. Your suspension will not work the same way when the bike is, when the preload, like they have this cool thing in the LCD display which talks about, you know, the rear of the bike goes down, the rear bike goes up, and it looks like, wow, this is a MotoGP bike. All it's doing is churning into preload and less preload. That's all it's changing. And so that's how it gets the attitude. But you compromise the suspension. Much better way to set your bike up is to find your preload, whether you have an EVO or a standard or any motorcycle you have, Kawasaki, whatever, is to find the preload that's right for you, not just for your weight, but also for your level of riding, like how fast do you go. You know, once you get this ideal preload, don't change it. There you go. That's a lot of things. 4 things. Superclamp, the ride height lowering control arm, the new SPORTLINKs, and the Superjack. There you go. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Let's have some fun. Enjoy your family.